Hello, Taurus. Welcome back to this space with me today. And happy birthday to every beautiful Taurus soul listening right now. I hope your day carries a little softness, a little peace, and moments that feel gentle to your heart. You know, there are certain kinds of exhaustion that are hard to explain. They don't feel like the normal tiredness after a long day of work. And they're not the kind of sadness people can easily point to and name. They move quieter than that, like those moments when you sit in your car after finally getting home, but you still don't want to step outside yet. The streetlight spills softly across the windshield. Your phone keeps vibrating somewhere in your jacket pocket. Another message, another missed call, another person needing just a little more from you. And the strange thing is, Taurus usually isn't very good at ignoring those things. You might already be exhausted, a dull headache sitting behind your eyes, your shoulders tight after carrying the weight of the day. But the moment someone says, "I'm not okay," your voice softens almost automatically, like there's always a part of you prepared to hold things together for someone else. Even when your own energy is running dangerously low. Maybe it's because Taurus becomes the steady place people lean on. In family life, you're often the one quietly keeping things from falling too far apart. In love, you're the person trying to stay calm after an argument. In friendships, you're the one who listens longer than your body honestly has the strength for. And sometimes, that strength really is beautiful. It makes people feel safe around you. It makes them believe that no matter how chaotic life gets out there, there's still someone solid enough to stay. But very few people stop to ask whether that pillar holding everything up has gotten tired too. And Taurus rarely asks that question either. You get used to continuing to answer texts even when your eyes are already heavy. Continuing to stay awake, listening to someone else's pain at midnight, even though you have to wake up early the next morning. Continuing to say, "It's okay," while something inside you has already started growing quiet. Some people look at Taurus and think, this person is doing fine, only because you never say otherwise. But sometimes, silence isn't peace. Sometimes it's just endurance that's lasted too long. Like a house that always keeps the porch light on so everyone else can find their way home. While inside, no one remembers to open a window and let the air in. And maybe the hardest part about this kind of exhaustion is that it doesn't arrive all at once. It builds slowly, in the habit of checking your phone the second you wake up, in constantly thinking ahead for everyone else's emotions, in apologizing automatically, even when you did nothing wrong. In those evenings when your body wants rest, but your mind keeps scanning the room, wondering if someone still needs you. Over time, the feeling of being needed starts blending together with the feeling of being loved. And maybe that's when Taurus quietly backs themselves into a very small corner, a corner where you're always the strong one, always the stable one. Always the more mature one, to the point where even being vulnerable for a moment makes you feel guilty somehow. There are nights when Taurus finally lies down very late, not because you were busy, but because those were the only few minutes left when nobody was calling your name anymore. The room is dark, the fan hums softly in the background, your phone is finally silent. And inside that rare moment of stillness, a very quiet emptiness starts to rise. Not dramatic enough to break you apart, not heavy enough to make you cry. Just a deep tiredness resting somewhere in your chest, like your body is trying to whisper something very small. That maybe you've been strong for too long. That maybe always holding everyone else together has slowly made you forget what it feels like to be held by someone too. And sometimes that may be the part that exhausts people the most, not carrying too much, but growing so used to being the one who carries everything. There's a very small difference between those two things, so small that many Taurus souls can spend years without noticing it. When someone is simply going through a difficult season, they still remember what rest feels like. They still know how to let their shoulders drop. They still trust that eventually there will be room to breathe again. But when someone becomes too familiar with the role of the one holding everything together, the body slowly starts treating stress like it's normal, like a room with the air conditioner humming for so many hours. You eventually forget what real silence even sounds like. There are mornings when Taurus wakes up already tired before the day has even begun. Nothing terrible happened. Nothing dramatic is falling apart. It's just that the mind started working long before the sun came up. Who might be upset with me? Who should I answer first? What could go wrong today? Did I forget something? Those thoughts move quickly. So quickly that sometimes you mistake them for responsibility. But responsibility and long-term pressure may only be separated by one very quiet feeling inside the body. A quiet feeling Taurus often ignores. You still show up to work on time. Still answer messages politely. Still smile during conversations. Still remember people's birthdays. Still ask everyone else if they're doing okay, but rarely stop long enough to ask yourself, am I okay? Maybe because somewhere deep inside, Taurus often ties their worth to how useful they can be for other people. You grow used to showing up when someone needs you. Used to becoming the calm in the middle of chaos. Used to being the more understanding person in the room. So sometimes the idea of resting starts to feel strangely close to failure. There are nights when you finally lie down in bed and your body aches softly. Not serious enough to complain about. Just the quiet ache of someone who has been bracing themselves for too long. You check your phone one last time before sleeping, scroll through a few unanswered messages, read through someone else's story, making sure nobody feels abandoned because you stayed quiet too long. And then eventually, the screen goes dark. The room sinks deeper into silence. And that's when a strange feeling begins to appear. Not exactly sadness, not exactly loneliness, just emptiness. Like you've spent so much energy keeping other people from falling apart that there's barely any space left inside to feel yourself anymore. And maybe the hardest thing to explain about this kind of exhaustion is that it isn't dramatic. You still function normally. You still handle your responsibilities. You still make people believe you're doing fine. Only Taurus notices those tiny signals. The urge to keep the phone turned off a little longer than usual. Sitting in the car an extra 10 minutes before going inside. Looking at the weekend calendar and secretly not wanting to see anyone at all. Sighing without fully understanding what you're even tired from anymore. That's usually when the body begins whispering very softly, I can't keep carrying life this way forever. But Taurus is rarely good at listening to the first warning sign. You push a little longer, hold on a little tighter, stay quiet a little more. Because somewhere deep inside, there's still a fear that if you loosen your grip, everything around you might lose balance. And sometimes the thing that exhausts Taurus the most isn't the number of problems they have to solve. It's the feeling that they were never truly allowed to fall apart a little too. Maybe that's why this kind of exhaustion can be so difficult to recognize. It doesn't stop your life all at once. It doesn't create a dramatic collapse big enough for everyone to notice. It quietly takes away very small things instead. It takes away the excitement of waking up in the morning. It takes away the sense of ease inside conversations that once made you feel close to people. It even takes away the feeling of looking forward to the weekend, because eventually, even rest starts feeling like another task you're supposed to do correctly. There are Taurus people who still go to work every day, still take care of their families, still show up at gatherings with the same familiar smile. But only you really know that every time the phone vibrates, your body tightens a little more. Not because you hate anyone, and not because you stopped loving people. It's just that somewhere deep inside, your energy has started thinning out like a rope that's been pulled tight for far too long. There are evenings when Taurus sits quietly in the parking lot long after work is over. The engine is already off. Outside the windows, and the lights inside nearby apartments are turning on one by one. People are going home. Someone opens the door for someone they love. Someone calls another person in for dinner. And you stay sitting there for a few minutes longer. Not exactly because you want to stay, but because you don't quite have enough energy yet to step into the next role waiting for you. Once you get home, you still have to be strong. Still have to listen. Still have to keep the atmosphere steady. Still have to be the understanding one. Some Taurus souls live in that state for so long that they slowly forget what it feels like to be cared for. Not the polite kind of checking in, but the feeling of someone truly seeing the exhaustion inside you, before you even have the chance to hide it. But Taurus usually isn't comfortable asking for that, and you're better at enduring than speaking up, better at figuring things out alone than feeling like a burden to someone else, better at sitting quietly with your exhaustion than admitting you might need somewhere to lean to. And eventually, small signals begin appearing very softly. You stop wanting to open up the way you used to. You lose patience for shallow conversations. Some days, even too much noise starts making your head feel heavy. Things that once helped you relax don't quite reach the deeper parts of you anymore. You turn on a movie but don't really watch it. You sit with friends while your mind feels far away somewhere else. You laugh when you're supposed to laugh, then go quiet right afterward, like someone who just used the last bit of energy they had to keep the conversation going. And the strange thing is, this kind of exhaustion doesn't make Taurus weaker in the way people imagine. If anything, you become even calmer. You react less, complain less, explain your feelings less, like a lake that has stayed still for too long. From the surface, everything looks smooth and peaceful, but underneath, the water has slowly gone cold without anyone noticing. And maybe the saddest moment isn't when Taurus finally cries. It's when you begin realizing you can't fully reach your own emotions anymore. Everything is fine. Everything is normal. But inside, there's an emptiness that's difficult to name. Like you spent so many years learning how to become a safe place for everyone else, that somewhere along the way, you forgot how to find your way back to yourself. And maybe that's exactly why this silence feels so uncomfortable. Because the moment Taurus stops staying busy for everyone else, everything inside begins coming into focus again. The emotions that got pushed down because there was no time to deal with them. The exhaustion hidden underneath responsibility. The small empty spaces you use to fill by finding one more thing to do for someone else. There are evenings when the house becomes unusually quiet. Nobody is calling your name. Nobody needs you to solve anything. Your phone sits untouched on the table longer than usual. That should feel relaxing. But for many Taurus souls, those are the moments when loneliness starts quietly creeping in. You walk around the room like you forgot something important. You open the refrigerator even though you aren't hungry. Pick up your phone, then put it back down again. Turn on the television just to hear noise inside the house, like your body still hasn't learned how to stop bracing for something. Some people call that having trouble relaxing, but sometimes it goes deeper than that. Sometimes it's what happens when someone has spent so many years being the one who holds everything together, that silence itself starts making them uneasy. Because in silence, Taurus can no longer distract themselves from their own inner world. There's no packed schedule left to chase. No immediate crisis proving your usefulness. No grateful thank you reminding you that your presence matters to someone. There's only you, sitting across from a version of yourself that hasn't truly been listened to in a very long time. And slowly, certain feelings begin rising to the surface. A quiet ache when you remember all the times you showed up for everyone else, while almost nobody noticed how exhausted you really were. A sadness that comes from realizing how often you swallowed your own emotions just to keep the peace. A strange emptiness when you understand that for years, you only really knew how to exist while taking care of other people. And maybe the most painful part isn't always that others were careless. Sometimes it's the way Taurus quietly trained themselves to say, just hold on a little longer. Don't become a burden. I'm fine. Repeated often enough, those words stop becoming comfort. They become the way you speak to yourself every day. Some people think Taurus is strong because you rarely complain. But sometimes, that silence doesn't come from peace. But sometimes it comes from becoming so used to handling everything alone that vulnerability no longer feels natural. So used to carrying things quietly, that when someone genuinely asks, "How are you doing?" you don't even know how to answer anymore. Not because you feel nothing, but because your emotions have been placed on a shelf for too long, like a room filled with unopened boxes. You know they're there. You always knew they were there. But you stayed so busy holding the entire house together that you never allowed yourself to sit down and open any of them. And eventually, the body begins slowing down before the mind is ready to admit it. You notice yourself wanting to go home earlier, wanting more silence, wanting to disappear from conversations sometimes, even though you aren't upset with anyone. Not because Taurus stopped loving people, but maybe after spending so many years being a safe place for everyone else. Something inside you has finally started needing a safe place to rest too. And maybe that's when Taurus begins learning something very strange. That sometimes being alone with yourself can feel harder than facing the entire world. Because once the phone finally stops ringing, once there are no urgent problems left to solve, once nobody is pulling your emotions toward them anymore, everything inside suddenly becomes much clearer. You begin realizing you've been living in a low state of tension for far too long. So long that it blended into your body like a habit, like someone wearing a heavy winter coat every single day, until the moment they step into a warm room and suddenly notice how tired their shoulders really are. There are evenings when Taurus sits quietly on the couch after a long day. The TV is still on, but you're not really watching it. The light from the screen glows softly across the dark room. Outside the window, cars pass by and disappear into the night. And for the first time in a very long time, nobody needs you in that moment. That moment should feel peaceful. But sometimes it leaves Taurus with a strange kind of emptiness instead. Because you've grown so used to your existence being tied to responsibility. If I'm not helping someone, what am I doing? If I'm not holding things together for someone, where does my value come from? Those questions are rarely spoken out loud, but they sit very deep inside. The way Taurus loves people, you love through stability, through consistency, through always being there, through remembering small details other people forget, through quietly carrying a little extra weight so the people you love can breathe easier. But there's something many Taurus souls never realize. A heart that only knows how to give without resting eventually begins giving from its last remaining pieces of energy. And usually, that's when joy disappears before the body even understands it's exhausted. You still smile at the right moments, still answer people with the same calm, gentle voice, still finish everything that needs to get done, but inside, Everything feels like it's running on low battery mode. There aren't many strong emotions left anymore. Not much excitement, not much anticipation, just momentum. There are mornings when Taurus wakes up, and the hardest part isn't the work waiting ahead. It's finding enough energy to begin another day of having to seem okay. And then very slowly, very quietly, a part of you begins wanting something different. Not because you want to abandon people. Not because you want to become cold or distant. Your body simply begins craving moments of peace that don't need explaining. A morning where you don't answer messages immediately. An afternoon walk without needing to feel useful to anyone. A weekend that isn't packed full just to prove your worth. At first, that feeling can seem unfamiliar. Taurus often feels guilty while resting, like you're neglecting something, like you should complete one more task before allowing yourself to breathe. But the slower you become, the more you start realizing your body has been speaking for a very long time already. Through the exhaustion you couldn't name. Through nights where you slept enough but still woke up heavy. Through that quiet urge to disappear from all the noise for a few days. Not because you hate this life, but because somewhere inside, nobody has sat down in a very long time and gently asked, "How are you really feeling today?" And maybe healing sometimes begins through something that small, not through a dramatic transformation, not through some powerful awakening, just the first moment. Taurus stops treating their exhaustion like it's supposed to be normal. And maybe that already is a very big change. Not the kind of change that suddenly transforms your whole life overnight. There's no dramatic music playing in the background. No moment where everything suddenly becomes perfect. On just an ordinary evening where you find yourself sitting a little slower inside a familiar room. Your phone is still there. The world outside keeps moving. People still carry their own problems. But this time, you don't immediately run toward every voice calling for you anymore. Not because you stopped loving people, but maybe for the first time in a very long while, you understand that your heart also deserves to be cared for the same way you've always cared for everyone else's. There are Taurus souls who spend almost their entire lives becoming a safe place for other people, a place quiet enough for someone else to cry, strong enough for someone else to lean on, stable enough to make people feel like the world hasn't completely fallen apart yet. But very few people stop to think about this. Even the strongest house still needs its own lights turned on too. And maybe the gentlest thing Taurus is learning now isn't how to become stronger. Maybe it's learning how to soften toward yourself. Soft enough to rest without punishing yourself for it. Soft enough to say, "I'm a little tired today." Soft enough to allow yourself silence without feeling like you're disappointing someone. There may still be days when you slip back into old habits, days when you carry too much again, days when you forget your body has already been tired for a while. But maybe if, every now and then, you remember to pause for a moment, to sit beside yourself for a little while, then, little by little, something inside you may finally begin finding room to breathe again. And maybe there are more people out there living this same way than we realize. Still smiling, still functioning, still holding the weight of the world for everyone else, while quietly wishing they had somewhere to rest too. So if someone listening tonight recognizes themselves inside these quiet spaces, maybe that feeling isn't nearly as rare as we once thought. And I'll still be here, inside slow conversations like this one. If this kind of quiet, honest space feels comforting to you, you're always welcome to stay a little longer with the channel. But for now, I hope that tonight, before you fall asleep, you remember to ask yourself one very small question. Have I been gentle with myself today? And then the room grows quiet again. Just the sound of soft breathing and a heart slowly learning how to find its way back home.